Good evening and welcome to North Lanarkshire Live. I'm Martin Greekin, your host for this evening, and tonight we have another community group that's on. They have a long name, which I'm probably going to get wrong, so I'm not even going to bother, but it is LCCC, I believe, and we have Colin. And hello, Colin.
Hello there.
So, Colin, just give us a little bit of background. What is LCCC, and what do you do?
Right, so LCCC, so it's LCCC, that stands for Lanarkshire Counselling and CBT Centre. So basically we're we're a new community interest company. We've been on the go since 2017. So there's a bit of a story behind it. It started as a private practice, but basically what we do is cognitive behaviour therapy and counselling.
So what does that involve?
What does that involve? So anybody who's got anxiety, depression, low mood, grief, and are looking for therapy, counselling, and they're finding that hard to access, they can give us a call, and we're really accessible as far as we sit in the middle between private therapy and through the NHS, where the NHS might have waiting lists. We we take people in for small fees or free of charge.
So you're sort of new to North Lanarkshire as well, yeah? So when did you actually start up?
Right, so both my wife and myself, we live in Coatbridge in North Lanarkshire. My wife's born and bred Coatbridge. 2017, when I was not long after I had qualified to be a therapist, basically opened our doors in St John Street, just off the main street in Coatbridge. And initially it was going to be a private practice. We're going to rent out a couple of rooms for other therapists, do some group work and so forth like that. But when I put it on Facebook, it was bedlam. The amount of inquiries that were coming in, people that were seeking therapy that couldn't afford therapy. To be honest with you, it was heartbreaking, just some of the kind of stories you heard. So it started off as a private practice, and we've got a lot of students that use our place for training, and we've got a lot of other therapists who do some voluntary work and see private clients and all that in there as well.
So during lockdown, how did that affect your operations?
Well, it was really kind of strange. I mean, basically, our centre's got 3 therapy rooms and a training room, and before lockdown, it was chock-a-block. People were fighting to get rooms. It was that busy, and before lockdown, I decided to buy the shop down below. That's just a private investment for that, to create more rooms. So, so it was a no-brainer. We needed more rooms, we needed more therapy, and the demand was there. But then, when COVID struck and lockdown happened, everybody just ran away, and that kind of included therapists to the extent that they couldn't see clients face to face. At that point, a lot of the therapists just were going online. In the past, a lot of online therapy was kind of restricted. For instance, students weren't allowed to work via phone or online, but the governing bodies like COSCA, BCP, that's kind of governing bodies for cognitive behaviour therapy, they allowed students to see clients online. So basically, we just gave clients the option that we could still see them and we could still work via the phone, or we could work online with clients. So that was it was brilliant. The first lockdown, strangely enough, things went really quiet as far as inquiries. It's quite hard to get kind of head around that, but I think for people who were struggling, all of a sudden everybody was in the same boat. I think.
Well, I think like everyone, we thought the first lockdown was going to be a short period.
Yeah.
It was going to be 1 to 2 months. So anyone that was going through stress was probably going, right, well, it's going to be over soon anyway. There's no point.
Yeah.
And then it turned out to be 1.5 years, but...
yeah. You know, I think some people, you know, talking to some people at the start, this was a kind of break, and it was kind of, obviously people were scared and anxiety, but anxiety, the inquiries through mental health, I mean, I had read and seen on TV that things were going through the roof, but we didn't witness that. We seen this kind of slow decline in inquiries, but as time has gone on, that's gone back up through the roof, you know, for so many different reasons, you know.
Well, yeah, so, I mean, that's what I was going to say. Coming out of lockdown, as we are kind of out of lockdown now, I know it's still level 0 was not actually fully out. Are you finding that there is a spike sort of in mental health accessing LCCC?
It's easier to say LCCC, I think. Yeah, it's a bit of a mouthful. Yeah, there's definitely a spike, and I think month on month. Summer months are funny. Summer months go a wee bit. There's not as much demand, you know. So I think sunny weather helps people's mental health. People get out and about a bit more, and so forth like that, you know. But over the last month or so, you can see the incline going on. We see clients face to face now. We never shut through lockdown, and the people that volunteers for us and students have been absolutely amazing. We've managed to. We don't really have a waiting list. When a client comes in, they're usually being able to see a therapist within a week, 2 weeks, and you know, so very proud of that, to be honest with you. I
mean, there is that thing of when we talked about it at first, it was like lockdown was there, and then a lot of mental health issues that people were expecting to be were anxiety and feelings of isolation, you know, and then getting back to society. Now, as we're coming out of it, there's probably going to be a lot of people that are just living in anxiety of the thought of another lockdown, because it's a real feasible possibility. When politicians start saying, oh, there might be a minor one, you think, well, there's probably a big one coming. If you're saying minor, that's you trying to ease us into it. So yeah, are you prepared for that sort of stuff coming in, where people are just dealing with the anxiety of actually we could be going through this again?
Oh, totally, yeah. I mean, it's uncertain times, and you know, anxiety doesn't like uncertainty. They don't fit. You know, if you're an anxious person and there's uncertainty, you know, that's that's a pretty scary prospect. You know, and it's hard to. You can't categorise everybody put everybody in the same boat. You know, there's some people through like a lockdown totally isolated, and you know, their mental health is really struggling because of that. There's other people, you know, they're working from home, and to be honest with you, that suits a lot of people. But I can see problems with that in the future, and some people I've talked to who have come in, you know, are actually struggling now, just working from home, mental health problems.
I mean, there is benefits to working from home. I do a lot of work. I do a lot of work from home, obviously, as a self-employed person.
Yeah.
But what you miss out on from not being in an office environment or working in place with someone is, if someone's stuck with a problem, they have to send off an email, or they have to go and look something up, or they have to Google it. And whereas if you're in an office environment, you can turn and say, can you remember how to do this? Or can you remember how this goes? And you'll get the answer straight away 9 times out of 10. So there is that level. And also, I think a lot of managers might be a bit stalkery probably after a long time of people working from home, because they do take the attitude that you're working from home. You're probably sitting in your pajamas, watching TV, waiting until something happens.
Yeah. No, 100%. You know, the thing people forget is that human beings are social creatures, and it's fundamental that we kind of mix. I know a lot of people might be a wee bit more, fair their own company or whatever, introvert, but fundamentally we're social creatures, and you can't, people informally counsel each other every day. You know, if you turn to a colleague and you have a rant about something, at least you're getting that off your chest. You know, in the house, that doesn't happen. You know, basically myself, when I went straight online and I was seeing clients, a lot of my clients didn't want to work online, they just wanted face-to-face. I mean, I'm biased, I like face-to-face. There's so much more given in therapy face-to-face, the relationship builds better, so forth. But myself, I mean, when I was working online here, I didn't know if it was at home or at work. That, to me, that kind of... So eventually I took my laptop and everything, just worked out the office and as if I was going to work every single day. But this is a problem where people maybe further down the line, and everybody's different. If you've got people around about your family, that's great. But if you're in your house working non-stop all the day and you can't vent to somebody, and there's no decompression by the time you leave work, and I know commute's a bit of a nightmare and people don't like doing a commute and stuck in traffic or whatever, but behind that there's a decompression from when you leave work. You're kind of gradually getting distance between your work and you're winding down to come home. So that decompression, that's actually quite important, you know. Well,
you talk about decompression and doing things like that. I used to do stand-up comedy. Now, the sole reason for stand-up comedy, I would be on the circuit guys going, if you practice more and you do more hard work, you can go on in advance. And I was like, I'm just doing this for cheap therapy. I'm just getting up, because most of my comedy was getting up and venting and ranting about something that annoyed me and just getting off my chest. And at one point when I had a full-time job, it was basically all about my work. It's just, and it was great. It was, you had that release valve of, I'm not going to shout at somebody else in the office. I'm going to go and shout at a room full of people who will find it amusing.
And I totally get that, and that makes 100% sense. And part of mental health problems, if you can't vent, so if you're angry or annoyed about something and there's nowhere to put that, where's it going to go? This is depression, this is emotions getting suppressed, depression, so it goes down that way. Anger not expressed gets turned inwards and it ends up becoming depression. So venting and being able to talk to somebody, doesn't matter what you're talking about, there's that connection with somebody that's so important,
There's a funny one though, is when you talk about teachers in schools, and a lot of the older teachers will talk about the belt, and the belt was more for the teacher than it was for the student, in terms of the teacher would get so bent up, smack, 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 that would be it. And they'd have no stress for the rest of the day. Some poor kid got smacked, but there was nothing. When they took that out, they didn't replace for teachers anything to help them. So you had that skyrocket of teachers, having lots of problems with stress and how do I deal with problem children, because they didn't give them the tools to help them. And it's kind of weird, and you hear that because you had that story down in England where the teacher just snapped years ago. And when that happened, I was talking to a lot of teachers at the time, and they were like, you'd be surprised at how close most teachers are probably to that stage with their students.
Yeah. Funny enough, if somebody said what a prevalent profession who would come in for therapy, I'd automatically say teachers. Teachers are, I'm not condoning anybody about the belt. I grew up in an era where I got belted in primary one, and the thought of a teacher belting a kid or a teacher belting...
it's completely unacceptable, but it's a weird thing where that was there, when they took that away, because nobody thought that's what it was doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nobody ever thought that's what it was doing. They just thought this is keeping children in line. But actually, it was almost like teachers venting their anger, which is probably why a lot of kids got belted that probably didn't deserve the belt as well.
100%. I remember getting 6 of the belt, getting pushed through a door because the teacher lost, couldn't control the class, and somebody pushed me through a door and she grabbed me, and the next minute I was getting 6 of the belt. You know, and that was basically her frustration, getting give her a, well, back then when I was a kid I thought that was funny.
Yeah.
But, you know, give her her due, she came back and apologised for that later on. But I mean, well, that's the kind of thing what frustration does, and that's the kind of thing that built up emotions do.
Because you see it in every form of job and everything. When somebody has a built up level of frustration, they can just blow, and it can be verbally or it can be physical. I mean, we look at footballers when they just lose it on the pitch, and it's a good example of. I'm surprised it didn't happen the other night with Scotland, but it's something that, as a society, we've kind of got a bit more knowledge about, I would say. But I think lockdown pushed it to its edge.
Yeah, 100%. I think, I mean, lockdown. Who knows what's going to happen in the next few years? I mean, COVID's not going away. Will it ever go away? I honestly don't know. But the fallout from this is massive. Kids at school and so forth like that. And that's a big area where a lot of kids are struggling now. You know, so.
See, I didn't understand this whole thing with the attainment gap, though. Where if everyone stops for a year, everyone stops for just stop the schools for a year. The kids won't fall behind because they've all stopped for a year. If everyone stopped, no one's falling behind. We just go another year.
That's politics. I don't understand it. I shut my eyes to that kind of stuff. I would never be a politician. I would never get involved in politics and how all that works. You know that there's so many different industries now that, you know, some are getting locked down and some are allowed to go carry on. You know, it's very hard to understand the lockdown rules as they went through. I mean, even during Tier 4, which North Lanarkshire was in for most of the lockdown, you as sort of like a mental health organisation and group, you would have still been allowed to have one-to-one meetings. Yeah.
Under Tier 4.
Yeah, it was very grey, and the grey part of it was that, you know, if a client said, I want to come and see face-to-face, the question to ask was, is it essential? And what does essential mean? If somebody says, yeah, I think it's essential, they're struggling, so at that point, come on in, the door's open for you. We just put kind of a screen in between it and did some checks like sanitizer and all that kind of thing. Yeah. So some people can't work online, and so we never shut the doors. We just kept plodding away, kept going on.
The one good thing though is so that people have, I mean, for other people that just don't want to do it online, there's umpteen people that have been introduced to the world of online communication that would never have used it before. People that will do Zoom calls, people that will use FaceTime that would never have thought of using it before in the past, and talking with people from around the world.
100%. I mean, you know, basically, I know therapists who are working with clients at the other side of the Atlantic and so forth like that, but it's opened it right up. People can't access therapy, don't get the time to come for therapy, you know, so travelling and then an hour in therapy and then travelling back, you know, that's not possible for a lot of people. So online they can, you know, I had clients working they're sitting in the car on the phone, sitting in a park, sitting in a bedroom, whatever, you know, and they were getting to talk to somebody, they were getting therapy. So, you know, it's definitely, the online stuff is definitely more available now, and a lot more therapists are using it, which, to be honest with you, that's a good thing as well.
What was quite good, there was a About 10 years ago, I did an online conference for a drugs group, drug rehabilitation group. Now, they had a specialist, and they had about 60 doctors that were coming on to see this specialist. And they looked at it and they went, we could either fly everyone into Scotland from around the world to sit at this and have a conference that will cost us thousands, or we can sit this specialist in a room and we can do a live broadcast straight to everyone's computer, and it saved them thousands upon thousands of pounds, and it was expensive to do it at the time. And now you think, now you can have multi-level conferences because everyone's pretty tech savvy. So if you had to go to a conference on new practice in therapy and things like that, you could do that remotely, and it's not costing a lot for you to exchange ideas, because obviously I would suspect that when it comes to therapy, there is a lot of exchange of ideas and practices that are developing all the time. It's not just, oh, I got out of uni, got my degree, and that's me, I'm away.
No, and that's the thing, you know. So to be honest, you being a therapist or in private practice or whatever is expensive. You know, it's expensive to train to be a therapist in the first place, and then the you know, the costs after that. There's constant CPD events. You've got to increase your knowledge all the time. So there's lots of CPD events and so forth like that. And online has been brilliant for that. You know, so a lot of the fees and that were reduced. You know, sometimes you're paying £200-300 for a day's training CPD event. You know, that was kind of halved in a lot of cases. A lot of places were giving out free CPD, free training online or on a donation thing, and it was. So that's another plus, to be honest.
I suppose, I mean, again, to put the politician sort of hat on, the problem with that is you've just killed the AV industry.
You know, that's the kind of horrible thing, I guess. That there's winners and losers here. You know, there's lots of small. You just need to go up to Coatbridge Centre now, the main street, walk down it, and the amount of shops and all that closed and so forth like that. You know, and you know, so you talk about mental health. That's small business owners put all their life and soul into a business, and then all that's wiped out. How do people cope with that? I mean, that's massive.
I mean, I think there's also that issue as well where people work to an older age now.
Yeah.
So you're getting people working to 74, 75 years of age before they take their pension, which is another 10 years on to the working life of someone, which I know a lot of people that do it go, oh, I do it because I really enjoy it and it keeps me young. The problem is that 10 years that they're doing, a young person doesn't get a job at the other end of the scale. So the longer people work, the whole point of having pensions and getting people to retire is so that young people can get those jobs and fulfill it up. It's not about you're too old to work. It's a case of, well, what about that person? The economy only works if you go that way. I mean, maybe we should think about lowering it down to about 50, because then I would only have a couple of years to go.
I'd be quite happy. I'd have been retired 10 years ago if that was the case. I mean, I'm turning 60 next year. I can't imagine retiring, I tell you.
Yeah, I mean, it's bizarre. And then obviously women, the pensionable age is raised and things like that. And that is another thing where it's causing a lot of stress for people.
And one of the biggest problems with mental health, you know, that you know, people talk about mental health and, you know, everybody's got mental health, you know, and sometimes it's poor and sometimes bad, but stress, stuck in employment, stuck in jobs where there's been a lot of cuts and so forth like that, and pressure being put on limited amount of staff, feeling they're stuck, they can't open their mouth or they lose their job or whatever. That's all stress. You know, if people come in for therapy, and if you actually put on a board and you write their name in the middle, I am. I mean, you actually start putting, I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm an employee, I'm this and that. When you start adding all the different things what a person is, if you put like some stress to each one, you can see the stress levels really go up. There's so many people just burnt out, you know. And that's kind of why I mentioned even teachers earlier on, the pressure that's what's put on likes of them. I mean, it's
There's also this thing of we live in a society now where, right, you say you're allowed to be off 1 day a month to go see your doctor, according to employment law.
Right.
You see how long somebody keeps at a job if they take 1 day off a month to go see a doctor. They'll be sacked. Quite simply, they'll find something else to get rid of you. But there's so much stress associated with, because jobs are so scarce. You need people have it, and then there's this gig economy where if you don't work, you don't get paid. So there's no sick pay, there's stuff like that, and that creates a lot of stress. But then, as you say, when you put that circle and you put it on, the first thing to get pushed aside for the money is family.
Yeah.
It's always the thing. The family always suffers because it's, well, I need to keep the job. The family can take it.
Yeah. So how do, you know? So that's when you start seeing about, like you talk about mental health. So if a family's if parents are stressed, how's that going to play out on with their kids? You know, so
it all just kicks down.
Well, the knock-on effect for that, you know, if they've not had, you know, if the parents stressed, they're going to suffer for that, and it's
Yeah, can you see though that because obviously the government's saying that they're going to put a lot of money into mental health.
Yeah.
Now, when you see the government saying they're going to put a lot of money into mental health, you think, right, okay, they're going to put it into something like therapy and things like that. But do you think there needs to be a slightly more proactive approach? Because there's people who go, I've got mental health issues, and you go, yeah, not now. But see if you do this, we'll make sure you don't have mental health issues. See if you do this, do you know what I mean? Make sure that people have the tools so they don't get mental health issues.
I honestly, I wouldn't even know what the answer for that is. I don't know what the answer for that is. And again, I'm not a politician, and when you say put money into mental health, I don't know. Mental health and therapy is all about quality. And you know, for instance, so I'm a cognitive behaviour therapist. So you know, it's a kind of simple kind of modality, really, as far as thoughts, feelings, behaviours, physical sensations are all very much linked. And the premise of that is that if you can change your kind of thinking or change your behaviours, that's going to impact us on our mental health and how we feel. You know, so CBT is great, but I think it's underestimated as far as, well, that's quite simple. And if you get somebody to fill out these wee forms, and they just need to work on their thoughts, change their behaviours, they're going to be great. And that's the kind of, it's all about the quality. So I don't know what when they're talking about putting money into mental health, what kind of quality of help they're going to get. People need to talk. People behind CBT, for instance, you've got to meet somebody face to. You've got to meet people on an equal level. They can't, you know. There's things that we call core conditions where people have got to be accepted. They can't be judged in a room. They need time. You know, they've got to, if they don't get on with the therapist, none of it else is going to work. You know, people, if they're you know, if the quality is not there and there's money spent on that relationship, which is time consuming, you know, I can't see how that's going to work unless people are given time. You know, what they're going to get, 1 or 2, 3 sessions with of therapy. It can take more than that. It can take, some people can feel better after 2 or 3 sessions. Sometimes it takes 2 years, sometimes it takes 3 years.
So, yeah, no, I know what you mean. So you need time, and you need so you guys are fairly new though. You're 2-3 years old. Partnerships in North Lanarkshire built up with other mental health charities and support groups.
You know, we've not really done that, and moving forward, you know, this is kind of where we went to kind of community interest companies. So it's myself and my wife that started this off. So my wife deals with all the inquiries. We had another lady she's opened a kind of practice in Glasgow. I'm going to put a shout out for her. Name's Claire Monaghan, who really helped us so much over the last few years. And she's opened a place in Glasgow, and she's going to be doing the kind of same thing as us. So basically, my wife deals with all the inquiries. I'm in the front line all the time, as far as most of the time I'm spent in a room with somebody, with a client. So as time goes on, we want to kind of reach out with different partnerships, because again, as you talk about mental health, it's more than just talking. You know, a lot of people come in because they're lonely, they're isolated, and if we can link in with a lot of other groups for activities and so forth like that, yeah, we're so if anyone's listening to this tonight, we'd love to link in with so many different people to be a part of all this. Yeah.
Right, so how do I get in touch with you?
How do you get in touch? Well, so you can get in touch via Facebook. You can message us through Facebook private message. You can go to our website, lanarkshirecounselling.com, or you can phone us on 01236 897 544.
Well, thanks for coming on, Colin. I hope that some people watch this maybe reach out to the organisation and get the help they need. Or
please do, and please do. We're open for any inquiries at all. Nobody gets turned away. Everybody gets. They'll get access to us, and there's not a big waiting list for that. So, and you can work on small fees, donation based or whatever. So, yeah, please do get in touch.
So that was Colin from LCCC, Lanarkshire, but all the information's on the video, either up or above, depending on which format you're watching it on. But we will be back next week, and as always, thanks for watching.